And joining us in studio is Kim Heller, political commentator and writer. We have Moyane from the South African Liberty Foundation as their chairperson. Is also with Mosiri and attorneys. And we have Luther Lebelo. He is the Group Executive Employment Relations at SARS. You're at home. Join us on social media. Good evening to our guests, and thanks so much for joining us. I mean, since time immemorial, I suppose since the appointment of Commissioner Tom Moyane, it hasn't been smooth sailing. I think his person had been criticized, and there had been that suspicion that he's not necessarily the best guy for the job. Would it be because he came from correctional services? Mr. Lebelo, maybe you can give us insight. Why was he already prejudged even before having done the job?
In fact, if you look into, if you were to look back when he was appointed the first time, there were a lot of congratulations, struggling to pronounce.
Yeah, so people were happy, is that what
We're very happy, and I think the problem started when he started to then acted on the Sikhakhane report. I think that is where the problem started. And the problems never ended. And the problem is the Sikhakhane report exposed something that was not expected from SARS, because those who ran SARS before him were over-glorified. So when the Sikhakhane report come and say, but the possibility exists that the people who came before him might not have been ran a clean ship, I think the attacks started. Very supported by the mainstream media. The mainstream media has been very central in attacking Commissioner Moyane. And that's why at some point we have said as SARS that we are strongly believing that the reason why he gets attacked is because there are institutions, and it's a colonial problem. It's this thing of thinking that Africans cannot do particular work. We're thinking like that because SARS and other institutions over time has been created as these institutions that are very complex and they can be run by other people. And I think that is the suffering that Commissioner Moyane is going through. So,
yeah, and I mean, Luther, also it depends on the credibility or how highly a particular or your critic is regarded in society. So if a criticism is leveled against you by somebody who is deemed to be a altruistic protector of the Constitution, somebody who is squeaky clean, who's above board, then it tends to stick. But as we've seen, very few can hold that high moral ground. Mosiri, what do you make out of the comments made that SARS is run by people who are incompetent, it's now become a political project, and yet we've seen that they've collected the necessary revenue as mandated by the Act?
I think in South Africa we need to make sure that we separate fact from fiction, you know, and it's becoming very difficult. It's easy to every day tell a lie to South Africans, and it tends to be the truth. The more you tell the lies in your mainstream media, the more people tend to believe that is the truth. You put facts from fiction. The fiction part of this is that the predecessor of the current leader of SARS have failed, actually have succeeded. That is the fiction. The fact remains that when this new Moyane came in, he has made a success of it. Statistics are there. We can see that he has done a great job. And these are the facts that are there. But because you keep on telling lies all the time, they tend to be the truth. Now, people are having very difficult to separate fact from fiction. Now, if we were to go, I'm very grateful and glad that AN7 has been running, particularly the KPMG scandal, long before the mainstream can come with it. It has exposed it, not only at SARS, but at the time that Pravin was heading finance. He was the Minister of Finance, and that could be shown at that level. But despite these facts, but because there is this perception that it's been created that when you listen to the AN7, you're probably listening to Gupta TV. Now, that is fiction. Facts are presented. Listen to the facts.
Yeah, but for responsible, pragmatic leaders to criticize a government institution, and SARS had always been glorified as one of these magical agencies, etc. If that happens, in terms of the confidence of taxpayers in the new leadership, you're not only discrediting the individual leadership, you're actually destroying the credibility of the whole institution. Shouldn't there be more responsible utterances of these kind of criticism? And if there is a case to be answered, you can always call a parliamentary meeting. There's ways of mitigating these things. Kim?
Cindy, I'm going to get to the inappropriateness of Pravin Gordhan's comment in a moment, but I'd like to quote a great revolutionary leader, Malcolm X, who said that media is the most powerful entity in the entire world because of its ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And media would like us to believe that our former Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, is a superhero on a mission to save South Africa from state capture, when in fact he may well be the protagonist. The media as well is portraying Tom Moyane as a villain rather than a victim in this whole saga. And I think we're going to see a lot of truth unfolding in the next while. And I think we're going to be very surprised at who is the captured and who is the capturer. As far as the comments on Tom Moyane, I find this ongoing attack on him as well as other colleagues and comrades by the previous Minister of Finance extremely irresponsible. In fact, they speak of fracture and betrayal, and it's not what one would expect of a leader of this ilk. And I think he tries to create a narrative which is reinforced by the mainstream media that he alone, as Pravin Gordhan, is the only viable finance minister we've ever had in this country. He alone is the only caretaker, not only of SARS, but of the economy at large. And this is extremely undermining and possibly very racist, actually.
Why racist?
Well, he seems to have a record of not putting his faith and belief in black Africans. And I think that is a question that needs to underpin a discussion like this.
Yeah, is that what, Commissioner, we know that in their engagement there had been hostility, there was just this sense of disregard, if you like, for the leadership of Commissioner Moyane, although he at the time would deny it, but it soon then came out that there had been a very tumultuous relationship. Would you say that he perceived it to be a racially motivated approach, or would it be the fact that he would prefer somebody else to be commissioner?
Both. It has racial connotations, according to the commissioner. He has reached that point. You think this person is a comrade, you start working with him, but you start to realize that he actually undermines you. And I'll give you an example. When he was appointed back as the finance minister, the following day he came to SARS, and he refused to greet him. I remember Mr. Makoko was there. He refused to also greet Mr. Makoko. Actually, to greet Mr. Makoko, he made a very bad comment. He said, "I understand you're suffering from a diarrhea or whatever. I'm not going to touch your hand." So he makes those kind of comments, which are very derogatory. Now, and my colleague is correct. Let me give this example. And the second one is this problem of transformation. When Commissioner Moyane arrived at SARS, the EXCO had 4 white males, 1 African female, 1 African male, and 1 Indian being Mr. Ivan Pillay. In the tenure that he has been there, there are 3 African females in EXCO, 4 African male, and 1 white male. And you'll remember that Mr. Moyane even mentioned that every time when he wants to appoint someone, Mr. Pravin will delay that appointment. I remember when we appointed the lady who was from IT. The appointment sat there for 12 months. You'll send back the message and say, give me more of this and give me more of that. And I'm talking about the chief of legal who's heading now. She's an African female. She's a former judge. The lady who's heading our IT, she's an African female. She's a former CEO of, Department of Public Works. She has been nominated as the best chief information officer on the MTN award for the whole country. She's there. The other one has been a partner in Gilead. And I can talk about the caliber that we have of the other African males. So I can give example. We used to have 3 African females, 4 African females as GEs. As we're speaking today, out of the 23 females, 19 are Africans.
So why then should we not believe what former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan says when he says, and I quote, "SARS has become a political project. One could argue that the people that have been appointed in those positions are essentially there to influence, are essentially there to continue with state looting," as he likes to say.
You know what is his biggest mistake? And let me maybe send Commissioner's message, because his message is one of the most, and maybe unethical is too harsh, but it's so unprecedented that you go and make comments like that about your predecessor. It's either you are bitter, it's either you are angry, or you've got other factors. Civility demands that if there is a predecessor who's not performing well and you've been there and you think you can do better, you decently call that person and say, I can guide you to do 1, 2, 3, 4. It's wrong. I can't find the word, but it's unethical maybe that you'll do that.
And why for me, you know, when you move from one project to the other based on your growth or self-actualization, you get another opportunity, you tend to leave the past behind. But what we've seen typically is the desire to almost control remotely from the former finance minister. What do you make out of that? It's just a personal observation. You might differ.
It's an entitlement to say, I'm the best that they ever had. That is the perception, that they'll never have any best minister, they'll never have any SARS, a commissioner that could be there. I'm the best thing that ever happened to South Africa. You're lying to yourself. That's a factual lie. The reality is, so far, this is by far, Moyane, the best we ever had in SARS. But the perception wants to be created is that, listen, these are the corruptees, these are the people who will come and influence furthermore state capturers. I am there to defend it. You know, I am the one who can stand in front and defend you from these people who are seemingly corrupt in nature. Those are the fictions, and that is the perception that is created to South African. And we've got to rebut that. We're here to say that is the lie created. And it cannot continue to be like that. It has to be viewed from the factual reality. And the factual reality is that SARS has got the best so far. And it's not the predecessor. It's not Praven.
Yeah, are we likely to see a court case here, a defamation case? Because it doesn't seem like it's able to be resolved any other way by both sides. They're not standing off.
Well, I would hate to see legal action being mounted, because I think that has become the politics of today. And I hope that within all the spin doctoring around the KPMG issue, we do not undermine the systemic rot at an organization such as KPMG, which I think is reflective of many white-led corporates in this country, nor do I believe it should take our eye off a real lack of transformation in an organization like SARS. So let us deal with this authentically rather than in the courts, which I think is only going to cause a further rupture of the ANC.
Luther, should public servants' credentials and qualifications be made public? I'm not sure, I haven't been on your side. Excuse me, in terms of how much information your leadership has in the public domain. And why is there even more so scrutiny when there is a black executive or a core team? You know, criticism is that you don't have any particular skill set. Even if you do, you wouldn't know how to apply it.
Not true. If you go to our website, the report that we give to Parliament every year has got the profile, the salaries, and you can see the profile by yourself. And that's why that comment can be nothing else but malicious, because the facts are there. But you see, that is the problem. You know, this thing of black people must always explain themselves. You know, exactly the point you're making is, it's a very painful process that 23 years into our democracy, we still have to be questioned. The Minister of Finance has to make us to question ourselves as Africans. One of the successes, by the way. So what the best tax administrations are measured on sometimes, it's not the amount of money you collect. It's the percentage against the GDP, because you collect this against the GDP. Under Commissioner Moyane, 2 years in succession, we collected 26% against the GDP. That was the last time that was collected was during those booming years. Since 2008, there's never been 26% collection, and that is not mentioned. That is not mentioned. People make arguments that under the Minister Gordon, when he was in Treasury with all the celebrations, the economy never grew, and the responsibility of the economy to grow is the Minister of Finance. SARS collects from the economy that grows. But you see, we didn't want to get into that, because for us it's not a competition. We're working for the one government, we're working for the same state. I mean, if I give you Commissioner Moyane, for instance, Commissioner Moyane was a managing director of Engine in Mozambique. He was the CEO of government printing. He, as you know, he was in the correctional services. He has operated at that level. But when he enters here, he must start from scratch and explain himself. And I think we must be straight and say the comments that were made are very insulting to the 14,500 employees that works for SARS. In SARS, an average, we've got 15 years average of stay at SARS. The guy who's running, I'll give you an example, the guy who's running our research unit, Dr. Randall Carousel, has been on TV. He has got a PhD. We have 170 chartered accountants in SARS. Probably we'll have the biggest chartered accountants in the country. We have got 200 people with the degrees in economics. Dr. Randall, like I'm saying, has got a PhD. He's also the chairperson of Vets Council. And those are the people that are in SARS. And for someone to come there, and we don't want to talk about his qualification. I mean, we know that he went to SARS with a qualification on pharmacy. He was a pharmacist. And nobody criticizes him.
But I think, yeah, it's the reputational damage to the institution as well. I don't think, it's only to Commissioner Tom Moyane, because by extension he's then saying that the skill set there is inadequate or of poor quality, that SARS doesn't know what they're doing. And the concern for me is that if we talk about being downgraded or South Africa having to portray itself as an investment-friendly country, we those kind of institutions don't have to have a blemish, Mosiri. So should Commissioner ignore the comments being made, focus on the work, let the figures talk for itself, or does it have to take a campaign in trying to restore the credibility of SARS?
You can't let it be and say that, my work will speak for me. Apparently it won't. From this media that we have in South Africa is that they will concentrate on your negativity. They will concentrate on making sure that there is as much negative story about SARS as possible. Make sure that the reputation of SARS is damaged. Make sure the reputation of South African economy falls apart, because there's nothing without us that South Africa should have. That's a perception that has been running about also in politics, that listen, these ones are the corrupt ones, and if they were to take over, the economy of South Africa will collapse. If I'm fired as the Minister of Finance, the Moody's will render South Africa a non-economic country. It will fall apart. So I'm the best. We are the best in here. See us as your best. That is the perception created. And funny enough, there is a widespread media that seems to be focusing on that. And we can't ignore it. But we've got to keep on telling our people the truth so that they can see the light in this mist of darkness that has been created here. And under the circumstances, yes, there is this need and want to make sure that the reputation of SARS is clearly damaged so that some people can be seen as the saviors.
By the way, we always send questions to our interviewees. So former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan, the invitation is always open, and we don't usually get a response, but nonetheless, it doesn't hurt to try. For me, let's just look at the damage that has been done. Luther, I don't know whether you can quantify it,
yes,
or in terms of your surveys, what people are saying. Has there been a change in the approach? Or
yeah, it has. You'll remember at some point we're very unforgiving of Judge Davis making comments. Because when people who are celebrated, either artificially or real, make comments, our people believe in their comments. And it's a very important point you're making, and I can see where you're going. So if you say SARS does not have people who understand tax institution, it means when they do your tax and they say you're owing or whatever, don't believe it. Because remember a tax institution must be such that when they say to you you're owing us 10 rand, you must not have a sub-doubt that maybe it's 9 rand. You must believe them because their credibility must talk for themselves. When people like former Minister of Finance say that, it cuts into that credibility. I normally say if somebody takes 28% of your profit business and somebody takes 45% of your hard-earned salary, for you to deliver it voluntarily, that person's credibility must be beyond reproach. And he's correct. So when South African media, and one of our colleagues, Dr. Randall, mentioned it in one of the texts in Daba, that when you attack SARS for your own political agenda, because I once asked a journalist, what did Mr. Moyane do that he should have done differently? They tell you, yeah, but they're saying. No. What did he do? Don't tell me about what they're saying. Nothing come out.
Yeah, there was the issue of a 30 billion rand shortfall, I think, in the last financial year.
And it was out. You know, in 2009, there was a 60 billion cut when the former Minister of Finance was the commissioner. Because how all that works is that people sit down and say the economy is growing like this, it's expected to grow like this, SARS can collect so much money. If the economy doesn't grow, they reduce so it's not a sign of performance. And the Minister of Finance knows about that, and all the people know that. But they'll do that. So they'll come when they have knowledge of something, play this thing that, it's Moyane who's failing. And the agenda, we're cutting our nose to spite our face. Because when SARS fails because it loses confidence, so society loses confidence, we're not going to be able to pay the social grants, we're not going to be able to build these schools, we're not going to be able to build these hospitals. So we need to be matured. And that's why when people attack SARS, say they don't have skills, SARS this, Moyane is a failure. For me, they lack the maturity of patriotism. That when you do that but understand that there are needy people. Maybe you are rich, maybe some of them are rich, so they don't need little things. But there are millions of people who have been suffering before 1994 who are looking in this government to get the little money that they have to change their lives. And we must think about those people.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up with my queen, Kim Helle. Your closing remarks, especially in what the motive, what would the former finance minister stand to gain by being or maligning Tom Moyane?
You know, I think this whole SARS saga is part of a bigger story of state capture. And I think we're going to, the truth is yet to unfold. And we do need to interrogate why the former Minister of Finance is trying to shatter confidence in South Africa. We also need to look back at his record of within the RET sector. He has not been an advocate for transformation. If one looks at how he responded to the CX report in terms of apartheid corruption, I don't believe he stood with the country and with the majority of the people. So his motives, I think, are brought into the spotlight very succinctly in this latest maneuver.
Yeah, but motives are very difficult to prove. As an advocate or a lawyer yourself, we're in a space where nuances and aspersions are taken as facts. Moseri, just your final comments.
Facts and fiction. Facts, we can separate the two. We can see what is really happening in South Africa. We know what people are intending to make South Africans see. That the reality is that without us, the economy won't make it. Without us being in the leadership, the economy of South Africa will collapse. That's what the message is being said. And we're saying that is not true. People have got to see through.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks indeed. Kim Helle, political commentator and writer with the New Age. And we have Moyane Tsiane, South African Liberty Foundation chairperson. He's also with the Moyane Tsiane and attorneys. And in studio, we have Luther Libelo, who is Group Executive Employment Relations at the South African Revenue Service. Thanks indeed for joining us. We'll take a quick break and we'll see you on the other side.